Welcome to the Splash City Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hartman. Thanks for listening. Please follow, subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and give us a follow on Instagram, Blue Sky, or Facebook. We're happy to have you here, happy to have you part of the conversation. Over the past few months, I've interviewed quite a few coaches during this basketball season. So today I thought I'd go a different route. Over the weekend, I interviewed Terry Vandrovec from Sanford Sports. Terry's based out of Sioux Falls, has a ton of basketball knowledge from his days as a sports writer, and works a lot of events at the Sanford Pentagon and various other sports complexes throughout the region. Today, March 4th, is the perfect day to bring Terry on as the NSIC just wrapped up their men's and women's tournaments, and then the Summit League will kick off their tournament tonight. Congratulations to the Concordia St. Paul Golden Bears winning the women's basketball tournament in the NSIC, earning the automatic bid to the Division II Women's National Tournament. They defeat number 3 ranked Minnesota State Mankato for the second time in about 10 days. And UMD, the Bulldogs out of Duluth, defeat St. Cloud State to earn their trip to the men's Division II National Tournament. St. Cloud State on the men's side will await their fate, much like the Mavericks on the women's side, to see if they get their at-large bid to the national tournament. But before we get to the interview I have with Terry, I wanted to do a couple other things. There's a couple of local stories that I wanted to talk about. One, in high school girls basketball, Tori Orline, highly touted, the state's all-time leading scorer currently from Crosby Ironton, future Gopher, will not be making a state tournament appearance this year. Crosby Ironton falls in the Section 7 AA playoffs to Pequot Lakes. Madden Greenway, Kentucky commit from Providence Academy, who's just a few points behind Orline currently, will now likely become the state's all-time leading scorer. Really kind of a bummer. Those two played against each other in the state tournament last year. Was kind of hoping to see that again, as both are seniors this year and all-time leading scorers in the state of Minnesota. But unfortunately, Pequot Lakes had different plans, and they knock off Crosby Ironton in the section semis. The other story I wanted to talk about was the Timberwolves. So they pick up their 4th win in a row, defeating Memphis last night by 7. Ant has 41 points, 5 steals, kind of led the way in that third and fourth quarter. But I want to talk about specifically Dante DiVincenzo. He plays with so much energy, and he's really, I think, the key to them making that turn in the third quarter. They looked lethargic. They hadn't played great. Um, a couple guys on Memphis had gotten hot, and Dante really helped turn that tide, I think, defensively. Most nights his defense is reliable on a team that doesn't always have 5 guys playing defense. He does so many things, so many little things that aren't in the box score too. For instance, in the third quarter, there was a series, or maybe it was fourth quarter, where Julius Randle kind of over dribbled, tried to force the action, and the ball's loose on the floor. Dante's after, and he picks it up. That doesn't count as a rebound or a steal, but it kept that possession alive, and the Wolves later scored. His shooting, I think, is just a bonus at this point. I love the way he plays. He often sparks a run. He can stop an opponent's run. He's just so active. And, the addition of Ayo Dosunmu, I think, is a really great mix, because now you have 2 players kind of like that, where it's just energy, it's defense, it's loose balls, it's little things. Dante also, I like that, seems to have a strong rapport with the other players. He and Julius, Jaden, Nas, they all seem to get along. You don't see a lot of, uh, you know, yelling or talking to each other about being confused. That they just seem to be on the same page a lot. You look at his stat line from last night's win over Memphis. He has 7 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal. Nothing jumps out at you, but I just think he does so much to affect winning. He gets over ball screens so well. Like, guys were just kept trying to go back and forth on a ball screen against him, and he just kept jumping over it and forcing them to constantly have to counter the action they were trying to get to. So, that, and then just looking at his numbers this year overall, he's averaging his 2nd most points per game in a season. He's averaging career highs in assists per game, offensive rating, assist to turnover ratio, and minutes played. Obviously, he's been a starter this year, for most of the season. So just really loving what Dante's brought to the Wolves the past few seasons. And in the starting role, he just continues to elevate the impact he has on winning. So Timberwolves, Looking strong here. They got a win last night. It wasn't the prettiest in the first half, but they get it done. And more to come on the Wolves on the next episode. But for now, let's get to my conversation with Terry Vandrovec from Sanford Sports. All right. Some of the biggest basketball events in the upper Midwest actually happen in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Whether it's basketball, softball, volleyball, they got everything going on down there. Sanford Pentagon is a big part of that. And I wanted to bring on a guest today to talk about what it's like to bring those events to life. How do they happen? Maybe some of the best, most interesting coaches we've run into in that time. I got Terry Vandrovec, the marketing manager at Sanford Sports. Is that the correct title, Terry?
That is it. Yeah. I'm fortunate I get to be involved in sort of all of our sports things, but I'm based in Sioux Falls,
Okay.
And that's kind of our corporate headquarters and our sports headquarters too.
Right. So you're in marketing for Sanford at this point, but when I first heard about you, you were a sports writer up in the Fargo-Moorhead area, working at the Forum. You got your start there, and then you went into Sioux Falls and at the Argus Leader there. I think you maybe even won some awards. So award-winning journalist, I should probably start with. But how did you kind of get into this role at Sanford and into this marketing role?
Yeah. No, you're spot on. I actually started at my hometown paper, my senior year of high school. Shouts to the Jamestown Sun in Central North Dakota, and moved over to the Forum where I was part-time when I was going to Concordia. And then probably by about my sophomore, junior year, I was pretty much on full-time, which was great. And then really enjoyed that. Got to cover a lot of high school basketball, small college basketball. I got to cover the old Fargo-Moorhead Bees, if you remember them, Steve. Rest in peace, the Bees. They had some legends, and just kind of gravitated towards. I really, at that time was when Division I was sort of, coming into the Dakotas, and I felt like after again sampling a lot of different levels, I thought the college thing was really cool, especially the Division I thing if I had the opportunity. So knowing that my buddy Jeff Kolpak, who does a great job covering North Dakota State, wasn't going to leave the Fargo market, I kind of said, you know what, I'm going to have to take this into my own hands and probably move if I want that opportunity. So an opportunity came up to come down to the Argus Leader in Sioux Falls, which like the Forum at the time was mostly a newspaper and the largest one in the state, to cover South Dakota State specifically. So got to be around that athletic department sort of early in their D1 days. And South Dakota was the last, this is context. I'm a context guy. South Dakota was the last state in the country to have Division I sports. And so I got to be kind of the front end then of traveling around and reporting back to people about what it was and what it wasn't, meaning there was a lot of criticism about that move in the state. It ultimately did go through with approval by the Board of Regents and the people that had to green light the move. But people were skeptical. And I think at that time, a lot of the people in the state thought, well, Division I is Duke. Division I is Ohio State. Division I is Texas. And it is, but that's the small majority, or that not a majority, that's the small fraction, right? That's the tip of the spear. And so when I got to travel to, and I'm not like picking on any names here, but when I traveled to Western Illinois, when I traveled to Savannah State in Georgia, when I traveled to, Northern Arizona, Southern Utah, places like that, I was able to sort of kind of dig in on the back end and report back to the folks at home what things were like there. And in many of those cases, things were sort of already more promising in Brookings, South Dakota than they were in a lot of those other markets. And so, anyways, that was really eye-opening for me. I think it was eye-opening for the readership and the people in this state. And obviously we crossed into Minnesota as well on that front, where they've got a different relationship with Division I sports. But anyways, loved it. Got to do some really cool things from a basketball standpoint. Got to see the Nate Walters era up close throughout, Mike Daum, and then of course the Jackrabbit women, who've been just a wagon from day one when they moved to Division I. So loved it, loved everything about it, loved the school, loved the travel at the same time. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm smart enough to know that the newspaper industry was heading in a not great direction. So just sort of decided again, Steve, to kind of take my future into my own hands and while the getting was still good. I didn't want to be in that position where you're like, let's say 50 years old, you should be sort of the peak of your career, and now you're asked to start over because you got let go. So decided to kind of get out, transition, and I was just really fortunate at the time that Sanford was expanding, their sports portfolio. And so some of my skill set transferred over, communication, content, public relations, things like that. And in the meantime, they were gracious enough to teach me about marketing. So, and that's 11 years ago now. So it's been a really fortunate thing. Again, I know a lot of people who leave journalism either don't do it on their own terms, or when they do leave, they end up kind of struggling to find a new home. And I've just been really, really blessed to land where I did when I did, and to get to be a part of what we've sort of developed over the last, 12, 13 years at this point, since the Sanford Sports Complex became a physical thing in Sioux Falls.
And now, like, the things you get to do, I think it's really fun for me to watch, like, some of the interviews and some of the, teams that have come through. But before we get to that, I want to ask about more just like how this complex has been built and what that has
Yeah.
done for the community in Sioux Falls. Because I think
Yeah.
it's a really impressive facility, not
Yeah.
just for basketball, but for many things. I think it just there's a lot of teams, even like you talked about the Twin Cities, people want to get out of the metro. Um, I know some local kids going down there for baseball,
Mhm.
in the spring because it is becoming a destination for sports.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So really, our chunk of land is sort of just off of I-29 and not too far from I-90. It was 500 acres of empty land. There was nothing there, and our former CEO just saw a real significant opportunity there for us to sort of plant a flag and grow things over time, and that's kind of how it's gone. And so within our 500 acres, I'm going to say, let's say roughly half of it is now filled, and the other half is still there, meaning we get calls all the time, and where I was
Mhm.
looking for what's next, what's the next business we want to attract, whether that's sports related or not. We've in the last couple of years, for instance, right now, a school called Dakota State, which is an NAIA school about 50 miles north of here. They're building a nationally unique cybersecurity building where they will both
Mhm.
work in cybersecurity and teach the next generation of cybersecurity experts. There's nothing like this that's not on the coasts in the U.S. It's also now where Sanford's virtual care, so all of it's sort of like telemedicine. That's all done on our campus now. So there's these things when you say sports complex, you go, oh great, there's games and there is, but there's stuff beyond that as well as we could fill out all that
Mhm.
land. Within that, though, a couple major highlights is just kind of gone piece by piece, going back over almost, I think we're probably about 13 years now. And, for instance, the first project was 9 outdoor football fields, and that was done in conjunction with the city of Sioux Falls. Right. So the junior football program in town had a place to go now, and they all have, nice grass. They've got lights, they've got scoreboards. It's right off the bike trail. So if kids want to bike to practice, they can do that. So that happens. Then we set up our field house, which is our indoor turf area. So now we've got, as you mentioned, indoor baseball, some indoor football, indoor soccer, and then it's the home to our strength conditioning program and our sports science group and sports physical therapy. And then the Pentagon goes up, and that's where our basketball home is. And we've got a ton of volleyball going on there as well. That's the home of the Sioux Falls Skyforce, which is the longest running minor league, if you want to call that, pro basketball outfit in the country. And they're now owned and operated by the Miami Heat. So if you hear about Heat culture and all
Mhm.
that development, all those players they've had come through their system, most of them have spent time with us, which we take a ton of pride in.
Mhm.
Just a couple weeks ago, Keyshawn Johnson won the dunk contest. Keyshawn was here a good chunk of last season and part of this year. And he lives here, he trains here, he plays here. So all of the kind of guts of that Heat development system, that's us as well. So you multiply that by there's a tennis venue, hockey, gymnastics, there's some retail. the headquarters of the Summit League. That conference is on our campus. We've got a clinic. We've got our own sort of, golf entertainment venue. So you name it. And then a couple years ago, as you just referenced, we added almost 2 million square feet of outdoor field turf. It's one of the largest chunks of outdoor field turf in the nation. And so between that, we've got 8, again, fully lit live stream capabilities on all the fields for soccer. Then we've got baseball. If you guys have heard about the Sioux Falls Little League program going off to Williamsport on a regular basis, they're based at our complex.
Mm-hmm.
So again, literally, Steve, from 6-year-old kids who are learning to dribble a basketball, up to a guy like Duncan Robinson, who knows was the Pistons now, but like that's the range of what we deal with on a regular basis right here in Sioux Falls. So it's been just incredible, and it continues to grow and evolve. And just when we think maybe we've gotten, as high as we can, or as much out of it as we can, something else breaks loose. So we've got some, more unique things to announce in the days and weeks ahead. Stay tuned. But it's just been a real blessing, and it's great. Again, beyond the work part, I've got 4 kids, and all of them have done things out there and do things out there on a regular basis. So it's not just the entertainment part or buying a ticket. It's just a day-to-day place for kids to learn how to pursue their passions and be active and, find things that they like, and then really like learn and grow and evolve and grow with those games. So it's a really, really nationally unique situation that we have here, and couldn't be happier to be the small part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of why I wanted to bring you on, because I know so many people who are gonna be there at some point, right? If you have a kid playing youth sports, you're probably gonna make a trip to Sioux Falls. If you're a fan of, St. Thomas, NDSU, SDSU, USD, UND, you're going down there for the Summit League tournament coming up this weekend. And so it's just it's a cool place. There's a lot going on, it's expanding. Last time I was in Fargo, I thought the same thing, and I think Sioux Falls is probably exceeding with their expansion, growth, homes, opportunities like this. You guys also have Sanford Sports has some places in Fargo as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. So the new, just on the south end of Fargo, which keeps getting more south, right?
Yeah,
From when I lived
yeah,
there, that's been cool to see. I remember when 30 seconds seemed like it was the end of the world, and the end of the Fargo universe, and now you're out to 60th or 72nd or whatever. But
yeah.
yeah, Sanford is a major partner with the Fargo Park District on their new venue that opened a year and a half ago, the Fargo Park Sports Center at the Sanford Sports Complex. So again, that one is cool. I don't know if you've been in there yet, Steve, or not, but that basically it's a mega building, and then it's got the hockey ice, bunch of courts, pickleball, playground, our strength conditioning shop, and a major league soccer sized indoor turf, plus a walking track. Fargo Park Department's offices are in there. So Sanford's kind of one of the, I guess we're the other sort of primary, we're sort of the primary tenant there that doesn't, operate the building. Fargo Parks operates the building. So that was very much a private public partnership. And it's allowed for us now to take a lot of the things we've done here and sort of expand them into the Fargo market. So over the last year, we've been now running club teams on the basketball and volleyball side. Freddie Coleman, obviously a well-known player and coach in the Fargo area, leads the basketball effort. And then Pete Tomhave, who ran a club called Summit, runs our volleyball group. So again, we've just seen significant growth in an absolutely incredible venue. I got to be a part of that thing from the conception phase, which I think was I want to say it took 7 or 8 years from the first time we worked on something behind the scenes to the doors opening. And again, as somebody who grew up in that state, who went to college in the Fargo-Moorhead area, our first daughter was born there. I take a ton of pride in what's happening there. And same thing, there's some additional land and development opportunities in that same area. So as Fargo continues to grow, so will our opportunities, and to have kind of a significant presence in the Fargo-Moorhead market that reminds me of what we had here a few years ago is really exciting. And you're going to just see, again, more and more tournaments, more and more training opportunities, and a tremendous jewel for the community.
That's awesome. So many cool places to visit. We talk, I coach sixth grade basketball, and where can we go? Where can we get schedule a tournament? Let's do an overnight. Let's get out of the Twin Cities and go somewhere. And like Fargo, Sioux Falls,
Yep.
the Dells comes up. Des Moines has some
Yep.
great facilities, but like you guys are doing some really cool stuff. So that's like the business portion of the segment. Now let's talk about some of the basketball stuff. I want to talk first of all about like some of the marquee names that you guys have brought into the Pentagon, because I mean this is something that I don't. I want to know. There's got to be a secret you can tell us, but how do you get Gonzaga and Mark Few to show up in Sioux Falls and play a basketball game? How do you get Scott Drew and Baylor, and Iowa State is close, but like these are big time
Yep.
programs. What does that process look like? How does that? Hey, you guys want to play in Sioux Falls?
Yeah, no, great question, Steve. And again, I'll give you kind of the genesis. So when the Pentagon was an idea, that was part of the thought. Let's make it work on a lot of levels. So if you haven't been in the building before, we do have basically 9 full-size courts, and again they're all
Mhm.
great surfaces, live stream cameras, top of the line, and it's all under one roof, right? So you don't have to drive across.
Mhm.
Again, my kids playing lots of tournaments in other places too. You don't have to drive across the metro. You're literally in one building. And so there's a convenience factor there as well. So we knew that youth piece, that club piece, that development piece was going to be key because again, there're just not that many pro teams that live here, right?
Mhm.
At the same time, the goal was again being sort of late to the party in one of those states that people say, and again, I don't say this because I love the Skyforce and they have a great history, but it's kind of like Nebraska. People say, well, they don't have pro sports. And so part of the thought was, well, okay, so yeah, fine. We don't have an NBA team or again, that was pre G League for the Skyforce, but how can we bring that level of uh, event exposure, excitement to the community? So it really started with that first fall, that first early winter, I guess, when the building opened. They were able to land 2 really marquee events. And again, I think it was primarily through relationships, right? That's how a lot of stuff gets done. And those 2
Sure.
big events were one, the NBA preseason game. It was the
Mhm.
Timberwolves at the time, again, who we had, something of a relationship with in those days, and the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the funny thing was that quick tangent here. The Bucks were a big deal in town because they had just drafted Nate Walters, St. Cloud kid, who I
Sure.
mentioned came to South Dakota State, draft pick. However, the other rookie on that team, a guy named Giannis Antetokounmpo. So we have some great photos of Giannis and Chris Middleton, who were on that team that was really not very good, and they were the 2 guys that stuck with it, won a title. So again, and weird, I can, if you challenge me, Steve, to tie any basketball story back to the Pentagon, I will give it the old college try, but that one's pretty legit
Uh,
and fun. The other big event that we had shortly thereafter was the Wisconsin Badgers against St. John's, and that was when Steve Lavin was coaching St. John's. Again, there was a
okay. And
connection
that's
there
the Crab and
because
Hoff connection there?
there you go. Yep. Joe
Right.
Krabenhoff,
Yep.
who's at Wisconsin and
Yep.
played at Wisconsin, played for the Skyforce.
Yep.
His dad Kelby was our CEO at the time, and again was able to kind of go and you'll see that, right? It'll be, well, we can't play at every kid's hometown, but if we can kind of make something work, to throw them a bone or thank them for whatever, we'll do that. And
Right.
so I think that was probably the
Yep.
genesis of that. But then really the plan was then let's go to work and leverage those 2 games because we've proven we can do it. And at that time I was still a reporter, but I was at both those games. And let's go to the Final Four and just meet coaches and go, hey, did you see that game on TV? That was us. Let's talk. And so it was really just kind of a grassroots effort. And the other thing is, you rely on the coaching tree, right? Again, it's like, oh, well, Bo Ryan retired, but Greg Gard was around. Well, now Greg's the head coach. Hey, Greg, do you want to come play a game? And then, Joe left Wisconsin for a while. At South Dakota State. Hey, let's why don't you guys come play? So that coaching tree grows and expands. We've been really lucky that way too. I mean, if you think about whether it's the truly local guys like Tim Miles and Craig Smith, who came from,
Yeah.
they've got some unbelievable stories, Steve, about their time together at Mayville State, racking up,
Yeah.
debt on their personal credit cards. So they had a recruiting budget and sharing an office. And, they're both,
Mhm.
multimillionaires or whatever now who've coached at the highest level.
Yeah.
So we've had luck with people like that breaking through and going, in Tim's case, his dad was kind of a legend in these parts, and if he could come home
Mhm.
at where his dad was living and play a game, he would do it. And so that's helped. And then even other guys like, a guy like Steve Forbes. Steve was at Wichita State when they played a game here. And then Steve
Mm.
goes to East Tennessee. Great. Let's bring in them. And Steve goes to Wake Forest. Great. We can call Steve, try and get the Demon Deacons here. So that's how the coaching world works. And so for us to bring people in and roll out a first class experience in a neutral site setting, that's what we hang our hat on, is that experience. And again, they have lots of places they can go. And at first I felt like we
Mhm.
were our game booking folks, and I want to be real clear, I'm not a game booking guy. They bring me in when it's time to announce it and go public, but the game booking folks are competing with,
Yeah.
the Bahamas, right? Or they're competing with Maui.
Right.
And now we're competing with, the players tournament where it's all the NIL money. So
Yeah.
those non-conference neutral site games have gone through this, change evolution. It used to be nice weather. Now it's maybe nice, nice checks at the end of the day. And we continue to be a little unique though, in that we're a small venue. Um, to some degree, we're relatively easy to get to for a lot of folks. We are relatively centrally located, and we're talking about coasts and whatnot.
Yep.
And we've gained a
Yep.
reputation for just putting on a first class show. So that's really how we've done it, and it means a lot to us too. None of those teams, Steve, I don't think will ever come here and feel like we don't care that they're here. We care,
Yeah.
the city cares, the fans care. And that makes a difference when you feel appreciated, when you feel like people are sort of rolling out the red carpet to make you feel good, and they value you and your program. I think that's what we try and hang our hat on. And I think people hopefully see that. And that's why we've been able to do this for as long as we have.
Yeah, I was thinking too as you were talking about those coaches and that kinda connection piece, like, the South Dakota State coaches, there's been a
Yep.
little run there too of guys graduating. Now Otzelberger, people probably don't remember, but he was at South Dakota State, um,
Yeah.
right
Right.
before he was at UNLV, I think, after SDSU.
Yeah,
So
even from that short time. Again, it was, Scott Nagy was here for a long time. Then Scott went to Wright State, and then he went to
mhm,
now he's at SIU. Well, he was replaced at Wright State by Clint Sargent, who I covered when he played for the Jacks. They just won the Horizon League last week. Brian Peterson went from playing at Iowa State, assistant
mhm,
SDSU. Now he's the head guy. Hendo comes from NDSU via Wayne State. He ends up the head guy at Drake after a nice run at SDSU. So again, as those guys have all just kind of we their
yeah,
growth helps us, and hopefully vice versa. Hopefully when they have a hard time booking home games, that's a problem in Brookings. Um, this year hasn't been as good a year as they're gotten accustomed to, but there are very few teams who are willing to go play at Frost. Well, I should almost have Frost Arena, First Bank and Trust Arena. And so sometimes what they would do is go, okay, great. Trying to think of a good example here. Actually, Dunk City, right? Florida Gulf Coast, coming off the run they had at the Final Four.
yep,
If I recall correctly, they wouldn't go play in Brookings, but they'd play SDSU at a neutral site, and that's us. And so again, there's different things that
okay,
different coaches can do, and once we have that relationship, we're willing to have those conversations and help everybody come to an agreement that they'll feel good about. They can whether we get the opponent for them or they find the opponent for the game. There's any number of different ways to do it because we are again, we're not part of a larger booking organization. We kind of have a little more independence and freedom in that regard, being kind of a one-off venue.
sure. So out of all those coaches, all those connections that you've had and those people that have come through that building, you got any good, stories? You got a good zinger that any of those guys have dropped on you or any of the staff members or anybody like that?
That's a good question. No, I think honestly, the thing that I like about it, Steve, a lot of times is not in game day. It's on a good number of the teams will come in the day before in practice, and so we
Sure.
might be in the
Yeah.
gym. either, meeting with their sports information director or making sure the TV talent has what they need, or any number of reasons that we might be in the gym. And so just seeing how everybody operates sort of when the lights are not on, I just think is interesting, right? And you're going to run the gamut from
Mm.
people who are probably like, why are those guys here? You do your marketing stuff when I'm not practicing. Leave us alone. You could be a spy, right? There's plenty of paranoia in coaching, and sometimes with good reason.
All right, so just a couple fun questions I want to ask. Like, if anybody is visiting Sioux Falls, not that you're the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Terry, but people are at the game, but they're looking for a bite to eat. What's your go-to place to eat in Sioux Falls?
Wow. First of all, I used to be on the board at the Convention Visitors Bureau, Steve. So I am oddly qualified to answer this question. But no,
Of course you
I will
did.
say broadly speaking, I don't know if this is true anymore. There was a point where Sioux Falls led the nation in restaurants per capita. So no shortage of really good
Oh.
places to eat and drink. And then I'll break that into probably two categories for you. Category one, we do on the Sanford Sports side own and operate a couple different establishments right on our sports complex. One is called Great Shots, which is sort of our golf entertainment venue. And so they have a really good kind of chef driven, golf friendly menu. The other place is right, literally a stone's throw from Pentagon, called Blue Rock. Um, Also do really good work, so I eat there a lot. Other than that, though, the most popular place in Sioux Falls is downtown. There's
Mm.
been a ton of development growth in our downtown area, with more to come. There's a pretty big announcement a couple weeks ago that'll impact the future of that area. So again, great breweries. If you're on more of like if you're looking for a place where you've maybe seen it, on like a national TV, like a Triple D kind of thing, there's spots like that. And then there's a couple folks in town who frankly have no business being in our
Mm.
market, but they've got personal connections, whether they grew up here, or whether they married into somebody who's from Sioux Falls. So there is really, really no shortage of places, and it's really fun when the different events come in to see the folks gravitate to different spots. We do get to host a PGA Tour Champions event every September,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of Argentinian players on the tour. And there are a couple Argentinian spots in town that they love, and they go there every night for the whole week when they're here. So it's grown and evolved a ton. There's Ethiopian food, sushi, you name it. So there have been a couple what I would call Twin Cities franchise lights. Crave has set up shop here in the tavern. So again, a little bit of crossover from our
Okay.
market to yours, and they both do good work. So you will not leave here hungry. If you did, that's on you.
Right. All right. So besides the Pentagon, let me ask you this. What's your favorite venue or arena that you've been to?
Um, Man, I'll probably have to shortlist it because again, I've been to so many, Steve, in like in a really awesome way. But there's some of the right. I mean, the pit down in New Mexico. I mean that's kind of iconic NCAA tournament lore, right? The kind of dark lighting, and that was really
Mm.
cool to get to go be a part of. Hinkle Fieldhouse, where Butler plays. Again, that's got that old school vibe. There's definitely a touch
Oh.
of that with the way that the folks at the Pentagon kind of envision that coming together. Um, oh, I don't know. Let's see. I
Mm.
went to the University of Washington was pretty cool. The Palace in Detroit was again kind of iconic.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I don't know if there's anything. Again, I've been to the Dog Pound up in Spokane. That's really unique because of who they are, and it's not that big. Um, I
Mm.
haven't done Tobacco Road. Just to be clear, I'm not slighting them. I have not done any of those schools. Um, but yeah, it's again just I like. It's kind of like, to me, visiting the 50 states. There's some that are, again, Fog Allen, right? I mean, incredible. but I kind of took pride in going to ones that not a lot of people had necessarily been to,
Yep.
or it's on their bucket list, just to see how they all do it. They all do it different. They all have their own local restaurant you want to go
Yep.
to. They all have their own traditions. They all have their own, quirks. No arena is perfect, and so I just, again, to get to travel the country and go to a lot of really unique places over the years was super cool. I remember covering a women's game at Notre Dame where they sat me next to Digger Phelps on media row, and I ended up learning a lot about Digger Phelps that day. That was not on my bingo card, Steve. So, again, I'm a half glass full kind of guy.
Yeah.
I love going to anywhere and everywhere. I've heard the new St. Thomas Arena is really cool. Haven't been there yet. Look forward to that. Obviously, spent a fair amount of time at the barn. Um, Another one that's kind of sneaky cool
Mhm.
is the Municipal Auditorium, or I'm sorry, it's the downtown spot in Kansas City, and to this day, it holds the record for most Final Fours hosted. And it's not really somewhere you think of, and it's very, very old school. Like you feel like you should be going there to
Oh,
watch a boxing event from the 50s. Um, but that's kind of neat too, right? Just some history, and you can imagine who played in that venue, and I'm not a snob. I kind of like all of them.
yeah. Those are some great ones. I did a podcast earlier this year, like my bucket list. Hinkle was in it. I've been to Fog Allen. I've been to Durham, to Cameron.
Nice.
But like New Mexico, you were talking about like off the radar ones, like New Mexico, the pit. Like I think that would be amazing. Dayton, when Ben Woodside and NDSU went to the tournament that first year and they played Kansas, one of my lasting memories of that was Dayton played after the Kansas and NDSU game, and their crowd, their fans are super into it. So I think Dayton would be another one for me. All right, so obviously, basketball fans, you're going to want to get to Sioux Falls. Lots of games starting in November all the way through March. Terry, well, how can people stay connected to what you guys got coming up next year and any schedules and things like that?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Steve, for teaming me up there. Two ways. Way number one, follow the Sanford Sports Complex channels on X, Instagram, Facebook primarily. And if you're into behind the scenes kind of stuff or extras, my own POV, I am at Terry Vandrovec. That's Vandrovec on all of those platforms as well. And my accounts are public. So throw me a follow, ask questions. I love to engage and interact with people. So, but yeah, we've got some more stuff coming soon. Just last week, we announced kind of a major women's event for the next 2 years. We've got the Gophers coming in along with Nebraska, Kansas, and Kansas State for November games in 26 and 27, and we're working on that schedule for next year. So, yeah, stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more cool stuff to announce, and appreciate you having me on to talk about it.
Absolutely. That's the 13-5 number 4 seed in the Big 10 Minnesota Golden Gophers, by the way, after
Coached
today's
by
win.
That's right, coached by another former South Dakota person, Don Plitzowite, and so there's another one of those connections we talked about.
Dude, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. That's amazing. And I gotta say, before we leave here today, follow Terry on social because you'll get incredible insight into mustache etiquette and much more. It's a great follow. I love it.
I appreciate it, Steve. We're trying to have fun, man. I get to do this stuff for a living, and we're
Yeah,
guys like you and I are blessed to be happy and healthy. So if I can make somebody smile or laugh, even if it's at a corny dad joke, then that's what I'm going to try and do.
dude, that's great. That's great. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for joining me, Terry. This was awesome. We could tell old stories about NSIC, NCC, NDSU, SCSU for days, but I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, and good luck with the pod. This is good stuff.
Absolutely, man. Thanks a lot. All right, that's today's episode. Thanks to Terry Vandrovec for joining. If you give Terry a follow on social media, it's Vandrovec, Terry Vandrovec. He does a lot of great work outside of Sanford Sports, charitable work, volunteer work. So just a really great follow, a lot of fun content as well as he's following these tournaments and events down in Sioux Falls. Thanks to Terry for joining. That was super fun. A lot of basketball to come ahead. Like I said earlier, the Summit League tournaments kicks off tonight. I was going to do my weekly college basketball top 10 rankings, and then quickly two of the teams that had re-entered the top 10, Nebraska and Texas Tech, fall last night. So I thought, you know what, it's not even worth it at this point. There's so many upsets, so much moving and shaking going on in college basketball. So no college basketball top 10. We'll have plenty of college basketball content over the next 2 to 3 weeks with March Madness, conference tournaments. Um, so, and high school basketball, a lot of section tournament champions will be crowned this week in girls basketball. Friends of the program, Totina Grace coach Travaris Bennett and his Totina Grace girls team will go for a state bid when they play Becker this week. So just a lot of action to keep tabs on. Get out there, catch some. There's a lot of great streaming options now. Like 20 years ago, you couldn't do that, right? You had to attend the game in person. You get score updates now live, but it's great to be able to watch some of these games online that you can't get to in person. So, but again, thanks for joining. Great to have you here. Follow, subscribe, do all the things. This has been the Splash City Basketball Podcast.
Back in that bag again.